Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football, second one of the day for the Miami Hurricanes as they flip another one. Last time we talked about Adarius Hayes flipping from Florida to Miami. Now you go out and get one from Florida State as five-star defensive lineman Armondo Blunt flips his commitment once again to the Miami Hurricanes. And Dill, we talk about this all the time. If there's one thing you can't knock about Mario Cristobal is his relentless recruiting at the high school ranks. And you take a look at 2024 with all the negative comments about this program that were happening in the summer and during the season. You take a look up, top 5 class in the country, one of the best defensive line calls that you see across the country. Massive get for the Miami Hurricanes, and kind of is right in line with Mario Cristobal and what he wants to do with this program, and that is establish the trenches. In 2023, it was on the offensive line, bringing in guys like Pancake Concho, bringing in guys like Francis Mauigoa. And then the 2024 class, we knew they were going after defensive linemen. They're coming away with 2 of the crown jewels of the class. Going to get into Armondo Blunt and then just do a little bit of a recap on our takes for this Miami Hurricanes class in 2024. Before we do, just want to say thank you to you guys. It has been just an absolute blast covering the transfer portal, covering the high school recruiting trail, and can't thank you guys enough for all the support you guys have shown the boys. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Dill, I'm going to kick this one off to you. 5-star defensive lineman Armondo Blunt coming to the U. How we feeling?
As I hear you say they rattle off another top 5 class, I feel like it's not that long ago where we were all thinking like, oh, they're going to have a down year recruiting. You can't bring in 2 straight big classes with a lot of talent. Well, here we are. Miami had a very good close, as we kind of said they might in the summer. And they're doing it. They brought in another big-time class, and I think you're right. The thing to kind of be happy about, at least if you're Miami, is it really focused on the defensive line in the way that you did it on the offensive line last class. You got the defensive line, and you kind of saw that's where Miami's shown, and that I think is becoming it's a destination for linemen. You want to come play good football in the trenches, come play at Miami.
That's what you have to be selling if you're Miami. And I don't think it's a surprise. You go head-to-head with pretty much every Power 5 school in the country for a guy like Justin Scott and for a guy like Armondo Blunt, and you're able to land both of them. Talking about Armondo Blunt first, many Miami fans familiar with Armondo Blunt reclassified from that 2025 class into 2024, still a 5-star, still a guy that was just absolutely dominant at Miami Central. Hey, the defensive linemen coming from Miami Central, 1, they're winners, 2, they're dogs. Like, they pan out for the Hurricanes at a high level on that defensive line. Obviously, Ruben Bain doing his thing as a true freshman. Dill, from a culture standpoint, I love that Miami seems to be getting a lot of traction with those Miami Central kids.
In just the Miami area in general, bringing a lot of kids and being able to lock it up in the way when you watch the old U 30 for 30 films, it was like when it was really rolling, it was like they band together. They're like, all right, look, we're from Miami. We play at Miami and that's what we do. And it's like fun again. Miami's a cool place to be. It's not the same, like you get your occasional really good kind of skill guy and everything else kind of was weak around it. You're starting to bring like everybody from Miami wants to be a part of Miami. And that's what like gives you the aura of what was Miami when they were great.
And I think you made a really good point. Like, Miami's never going to have a problem. We kind of said this earlier today. Miami's never going to have a problem getting the skill talent into this program. Like, guys like JoJo Trader, they're going to come to Miami. What's been holding Miami back is the physicality, specifically along the trenches. And you have back-to-back classes where you're pulling some of the best players along the line of scrimmage on both sides of the football. That's what really has to fire Miami Hurricane fans up. And Dill, I guess, to kind of recap Miami in their 2024 class, obviously this ranking, Armondo Blunt not factored in. I think Miami will jump Florida State in the recruiting rankings. What's your favorite part of this Miami class here?
I think it's obviously the defensive line, just because like you see kind of their top prospects are 3 defensive linemen, and to bring in guys who kind of have unique skill sets too, is where you have a really good pass rusher in Marquise Life, but you have a couple of guys inside who are, they're not like your traditional big physically defensive tackles that aren't going to make plays. They're like athletic guys who look like yeah, kind of what you want your new modern defensive lineman to look like. So I think you brought in pretty much a full class of guys to play along the line of scrimmage, and I expect a handful of them to play a lot as freshmen.
They're difference makers. I think that's how I qualify it. And you see a lot of defensive linemen who aren't necessarily difference makers. We talk about it like CJ Clark. CJ Clark, not necessarily a difference maker, but going to be a damn solid defensive lineman to have in that rotation. We don't talk about a guy like CJ Clark in the same light of Justin Scott or Armondo Blunt, because those guys are difference makers up front. And when you start to have multiple guys, Justin Scott, Ruben Bain, Armondo Blunt, and I'm probably leaving out a few guys that deserve to be recognized in that group. That's probably what you're most excited about. Now, for me, I was doing a lot of looking at this Miami class, and one of the things that really stands out to me, and again, the defensive line, I love it. I love two things about this class. One, the wide receivers. Like, this is a program that hasn't done the greatest of job in terms of attracting that talent and developing that talent. You have two guys in Nikar and JoJo Trader that I am extremely excited for, and Chance Robinson. I throw him in there too in terms of guys that are two of them staying in Miami. Obviously, Nikar coming from Georgia. Those guys, I think, could be really special in that wide receiver room, and a position group that we've kind of been critical of Miami in the past couple of years. You have three guys that kind of headline this class as guys that can come in and make a massive impact on the offensive side of the football. And one other thing, I mean, we talk about recruiting quarterbacks at the high school ranks. You add a guy like Nikar, JoJo Trader, Chance Robinson, your quarterback looking at places to go play. You got some dogs to throw the football to. I think that becomes a selling point for quarterbacks down the stretch as well.
Well, frankly, I think you got to give a lot of credit to guys like Jacoby George and Restrepo for this year, who, again, You kind of mentioned that wasn't a position necessarily they were killing it or they had a lot of big-time players going high in the draft. You look at those two, Jacoby George especially. I mean, he looks like when he's ready to go to the NFL, he's going to be a high pick, and I think they did need to kind of show that. They needed somebody to kind of get back to that level where you saw, oh man, this is big-time wide receiver play. It's not just having a couple of yards here and there. They big plays, flashy plays, those type of plays that I think attract high schoolers and be like, look, this is Miami team is kind of a place I can come and catch a lot of balls.
And you're hoping that trend continues, obviously, into 2024, but with guys like Ray Joseph and guys like JoJo Trader and Nikar as well. And this suddenly kind of, again, you said it best, becomes a spot where if you're a top wide receiver, specifically in Southwest Florida or around the country, and you're looking at where to go play your college football, Miami's cooking with them wide receivers. I think that would be massive.
The next part, frankly, is they got to start attracting some quarterbacks at the high school level. I think that's the one, kind of getting to maybe one thing you might be a little disappointed with the past two classes, frankly, is you didn't land that premier quarterback. And I get there's a level where that's not as crucial as it was because you can go to the portal like a Miami can go, all right, fine, we can go take a Cam Ward or someone, DJU or whoever they're going to go get, Will Howard. But I do think at some point I'd like to see Miami kind of get that premier quarterback through their program at the high school level.
That's what I feel like Cam Ward would be so huge for this program. You get a Cam Ward and Cam Ward with this Miami offense in 2024 is, I think, going to have a special season if he decides to bring his talents to Coral Gables. And that's probably how you start doing it. What you see it with Ohio State wide receivers going to Ohio State. They see it. They want to go be a part of it. If you can bring Cam Ward in, and this Shannon Dawson offense just kind of explodes in 2024, that's when you start seeing quarterbacks, top-rated quarterbacks, taking a look at Miami and saying, yeah, this Shannon Dawson offense, this Miami offense is a place where I can come have a ton of success. So if they can land Cam Ward, because I'm with you. Judd Anderson, and that's not a knock on Judd Anderson, but there's a reason he's a three-star guy, has only one real level or 1 year of real starting experience at the high school level. He's a projectable guy. You want to see Miami start cleaning up with some of these top quarterbacks. And if Cam Ward does, in fact, have a very good year for Miami, that could kind of get the ball rolling a little bit.
And that's what you got to hope. Because, again, that's kind of the last thing. You look, everything else you're really comfortable with. I think right through the defense, you're pretty good at all positions through these last two classes. You're obviously very good in the trenches, and you've started to ramp that wide receiver talent back up through the building. The last thing that will be it. And frankly, I think there's an element of now that Josh Gaddis is gone and Shannon Dawson's in, I do like their chances better because I don't I just don't think high schoolers could have looked at what Gaddis has really done for the past 4 years, or had done for the past 4 years as an offensive coordinator, and thought, man, I want to go play with him.
I'm going to offer one more thing that stood out for me, especially just kind of like breaking down these commitments as they've rolled in for the last couple of months, like the projectability and the versatility. Like, and when I say projectability, it's like these guys, some of them are not necessarily finished products, and they're going to need a redshirt year, going to be kind of limited difference makers as freshmen, but guys that have a ton of upside. We talked about Darius Hayes as being kind of one of those guys. He comes in and gets up to 230 with that 6'4" frame. I think you're looking at a special linebacker. And you scroll down this list, there are some guys that have a ton of upside, and they're not necessarily headlining this group like Justin Scott and Armondo Blunt and Zaquan Patterson are, but a guy like Cam Pruitt coming from Alabama, again, 6'3", needs to put on some weight, but has that frame to be a special linebacker with all the athleticism he has. And then you look at two guys here in Booker Pickett and Elias Rudolph, like two guys that are 205 pounds projected as edge rushers. These guys aren't necessarily going to play a ton of football as true freshmen. They need to put on some weight. But you look at a guy like Booker Pickett Jr., a guy that is extremely productive from the high school ranks. I believe he had 60 sacks during his high school career, his first 3 seasons, jaw-dropping numbers. And then a guy like Elias Rudolph, very similar kind of nature. This is a guy that maybe got a little overlooked by some programs because he's only 205 pounds. You get him in that program. You get him to 240 pounds, 245 pounds, you're looking at a special edge rusher. So not only do you have some guys that are top-end talent, but recruiting out of the high school ranks has a lot to do with projecting guys and what they can be as athletes year 2, year 3, year 4. And I think they did a really good job doing that as well.
And that's not a bad thing to have in today's era, where you, like, if you're so top heavy at the top and then you don't have enough guys staying with your program, because again, those top guys do have a tendency to leave at times, and to be able to build up a 3-star, or maybe even a 2, who knows, from like, again, like a projectable guy, but didn't really have the look that he's going to play in his first couple of years, maybe. But if you can do that at a high level, and in Cristobal and company can be kind of seen as developers, that's not a bad thing, because I think you do need some sort of core nucleus of guys who maybe have a chip on their shoulder a little bit, or were overlooked, who kind of make up the bulk of what you're doing. Because again, not every 5-star can go to Miami.
And it's just the balance, like getting guys. Yeah, Justin Scott, Armondo Blunt, they're ready to come in. And Zaquan Patterson, I think, is going to play early and often for Miami. You have guys that can come in, and they're not necessarily that like, you know what you're going to get, and you're going to get a good football player. But if you kind of take some risk, I would say, on some guys that have really high ceilings, and yes, is there a possibility that Booker Pickett Jr., Elias Rudolph just don't get developed as much as you would like them to? Yeah, 100%. That's the nature of high school recruiting. You're going to miss. But if you start getting some guys with some high upsides, that's when you see some of those 3-stars that, hey, weren't necessarily covered by ESPN or 24/7 Sports on signing day, and you look down year 3 and say, yeah, that guy's going to be a top 50 NFL draft pick because they got developed those first 2 years. So getting some of those guys who have that upside is another thing that I'm a massive fan of for this Hurricanes class. And you said it best. They're checking boxes. Offensive line, defensive line, that linebacker room, the secondary. They got a lot of dudes coming in with some high upside. Masterclass job by Mario Cristobal. Didn't really expect anything less. We got on here in the summer and saying, like, Mario Cristobal, if there's one thing we know he's going to do, he's going to close. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. Mario Cristobal ran the marathon, closed on a phenomenal class. I think Miami fans should be fired up about this one. Again, appreciate you guys rocking with the boys. It has been a blast covering the Hurricanes on the recruiting trail. Can't thank you guys enough for all the support. Attention now to the transfer portal. We'll be back with some more updates. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later.